Like, you're hitting me so hard. If you could just back up a little bit and let me catch my breath and remove your dread from terrifying me, then I would be able to speak to you. That's verse number 22. And then you can reply to me. We can have a dialogue. In chapter 9 and verse 33, he asks for an arbiter, or some translations go with a mediator between God and man. Job is saying, my suffering is so great, I can't even communicate with you. If you would just lighten up a little bit, then you and I can have a dialogue. Here's the funny thing. Throughout the book of Job, like we already said, Job doesn't want his stuff back, right? Job wants his God back, but what does Job keep asking God for in summary? Like, how would you describe it? What does Job keep saying to God? Give me this, or this is what I want between me and you.
Relationship.
Relationship and what?
I want a chance to speak.
Yeah, I want you to show up so we can talk.
Yeah.
Sometimes people say that. They think like, well, if God's real, God's just going to have to show up and show me, like show me a miracle, or I won't believe in God until I see him myself. What I find when I read the Bible, the 1189 chapters, a lot of people think they want to see God. And when he shows up, they're like, never mind. Exodus 19, you remember that? Yeah. Hey, we want God. Then they tell Moses, how about this? You go talk to him and bring us word again, but we can't look at his face or we'll listen. When people say God talked to them and came to their bed and they had a good chat and they were texting and sending emojis, you know that's not true for a lot of reasons. But one reason I know it's not true for a fact, everybody in the Bible who saw God thought they were going to die.
That's right.
Everybody. You've never seen holiness that bright. What does Isaiah say in chapter 6? Woe is me, I'm undone. I'm a man of unclean lips. I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. It's not until God cleans them up that they're on speaking terms. When Manoah, Judges 13, he and his wife, they see God or a manifestation of God before God says, y'all going to have Samson. They say, we're going to die. We've seen God. How could it be? And live? God tells Moses in Exodus 33, I'll let my glory pass before you, but no man can look on my face and live. And then he passes by chapter 34 and he declares to Moses who he is. Job says, I want to see God. I want my day in court. If I could just see you, we could talk. You're going to say your piece. I'm going to say, people think judgment's going to be like that. Well, I hadn't been baptized technically for the right reason, but when I stand before God, I'm going to talk to him and we're going to, no, you won't. No, you won't. Job thinks he wants to see God. And when God eventually shows up, Job is going to say, thank you. Job's going to eventually say, can you just go away? It's too bright. You're too much. You're too powerful. People think they want to see God. They really don't. They really don't. Remember this. The barrier between us and God, the reason why we can't look at God right now and like talk to him right now and say, hey, God, I want you to, like, the reason why we can't do that is always for our benefit and not God's. God hides himself not to tease us, but to protect us. If we saw him in the effulgence of his glory and in all of his brightness, it would knock us off our feet and destroy us. Job says, I just want to see God. Here's a question about Job, though. Like in the midst of the speeches, as you read them, and I'm talking specifically about the stuff that Job says, look at Job 13:15. This is like one of the highlighter verses in Job. There's some verses in Job that are on the greatest hits. Like people know that one, like, oh yeah, that's one of the favorite verses in Job. People quote it in sermons. 14:1 is one of these verses. Man born of a woman is few days and full of trouble. 13:15 is that way too. Job says, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. The ESV says, though he slay me, I will hope in him. Here's a question. First of all, two questions. First, as you read the speeches in Job, from Job, does it ever appear to you like Job is frustrated, but throughout his speeches, there are little hints of hope and still faith in God? Do you see that in Job?
Oh, yes.
I see that in Job.
Yeah.
Now, here's the second question. Why do you think that's the case? Why is it that on one hand, Job, you just said in chapter 10 that God hated you and that pretty much God's using you for target practice and he poured you out and curdled you like cheese so that he could just turn on you and do all that. But then in 13:15, he kind of just slips this one in like, hey, by the way, though he slay me, yet I'll hope in him. Why does Job kind of vacillate back and forth between thinking incredibly heinous things about God, but then at the very same time, there is this slither of hope in his speeches?
The nature of man. God
Yes.
is consistent, man is inconsistent. And so we go like a roller coaster up and down in our emotions. God is not hiding, Job is not hiding his emotions from God, and God is not chastising him because of his emotions. He's able to hear us. Like you said, God wants us to talk to him. Don't be angry at him, talk to him. If you have a problem, that's who you need to go talk to.
Yeah. And I also think a part of this is the fact that though Job is frustrated, the real truths about God that he knows are still deep in his heart.
Well, it's like you said earlier. Sometimes when we're going to visit with those that are suffering, sometimes it's better to just keep your mouth shut. Because they may say things, like you said, they may say things because of the state that they're in. Job says some things because he doesn't know, he doesn't understand. I haven't done anything anywhere near what is happening to me, and his brain is scrambled. So he's going to kind of.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good way to say it. His brain is scrambled. Yeah. So he's pulling some crazy, and then he's pulling some sound, and he's just serving it all on the same plate.
No.
But here's the thing to remember about Job. Deep within his heart, he still knows him. That's why he can say, though he slay me, yet will I trust him. We sing a song, you would assume it's New Testament theology, but it comes from Job 19:25. I know that my Redeemer lives, and I will see his face that light. That's Job 19:25. That's not a New Testament passage. Now, the concept is definitely New Testament, but that I know that my Redeemer lives, and I'll see his face in the latter days, and in his flesh, in my flesh, I'll stand before God. Job says, I know him. I will see him. He believes still. Oh, that there were a mediator between me and God, an arbiter that might put his hand on God and his hand on me. I know Jesus is in heaven just winking. I'm coming. There will be an arbiter. There will be one who can come between you and God. So in the midst of Job's suffering, he still hadn't turned loose of all of the sound theology. He still knows him. He knows him. And that's David. His hope.
It's like David was called a man after God's own heart.
That's right.
But he was all over the place sometimes.
That's exactly right.
Well, I remember one part in the commentary you was talking about